not all disabilities are physical like most people expect. So like most people wouldn't think that I have like a major disability. They're like, oh, you're fine. The amount of times I've heard, oh, you're fine. From like, oh, like older people, especially like my past job I had, I was talking about on my disability with one of my coworkers. And another one walked up and was like, it was an older man. He's like, you kids these days always have something wrong with you. And I'm like, oh boy, sir, I've almost died twice in my life. I think I have a bit of a reason to. I wasn't even complaining. I was just like, hey, I have a disability. Why do I have to justify it? You know, like, I shouldn't have to justify it at all. I've had people yell at me for like using, like I'll use I got used to this when I was a kid in and out of hospitals a lot. I would use the handicap buttons because touching doors, like, don't think I haven't been thinking about the doors I've touched today already. And I'm not gonna like try not to touch my face, and I'm gonna wash my hands after this. It's always on my mind. So I used to, and I don't do it quite as much anymore, but I'll still do it. I'll go like bonk those handicap things with my elbow so I don't have to touch it and don't get germs on me, because I'm really sensitive to germs and stuff. And I've had people on campus yell at me, and I'm like, I should have to, like, I get that people do it, you know, and they're just hitting the button. I shouldn't have to explain to somebody, and I definitely shouldn't be getting flack from somebody about it. Like, really? Like, it was something I learned from nurses, being a kid struggling with this disability, because I used to have so many IVs hooked up to me all the time that I couldn't open doors. I couldn't bend my arm, so I have to go, ugh, and hit it with my shoulder or something like that, you know? Like, I shouldn't have to explain that to people why I do it. So that part's frustrating. And the like, oh, you don't look disabled. What am I supposed to look like? Because all of these are more proof than ever needed that I have what I have. It's really rare to have freckles like this. I was born with them. They're not from the sun. I have them on my lips. I have them in my eye. And that's part of the Carney complex, is that I have all of those. They are on my organs. It's kind of like part of what made my adrenals mess up. In very simple terms, it's way more complicated than that. But it's like, I look disabled, but I don't. You know what I mean? Like, for whatever reason, this still doesn't count. I have to be like, gosh, who knows? Who knows what I'm supposed to look like to look disabled, to be treated like I am? Like, it's just weird. It's weird what, like, people trying to gatekeep it for whatever reason, even though they have no idea what they're talking about with me. Like, most doctors don't even know about how to deal with my stuff. I'm not expecting some random person with no medical knowledge to, but they shouldn't be telling me that they know, you know? I shouldn't have oh, you don't look like it. So that, I would say people need to be way more open about what people are going through, I guess. Or just like don't be trying to judge people and like call people out on stuff. So
I would say in general, most people don't know this, but I can speak from experience. The nicest people you will ever meet usually almost always tend to be people with autism. They're very kind-hearted people, and they just get a very bad rap because they're awkward around people and they're never given a chance. But you'll find that they actually are more loving than most people, and they're also like deeply caring about you usually. Like, if somebody with autism cares about you, they will care about you probably more than any other person without autism will care about you, which is weird to say, but one of the things is that we fixate on things, we hyper-focus in on things. If you're somebody that somebody with autism cares about, you can always know that they have your back. They'll always care about you. We're not the greatest with social interaction, but we always mean well. And, you know, we never mean to, like, hurt people's feelings or anything. Like, we genuinely care about other people usually. But yeah, that's basically all I can think of at the moment for that. But yeah, I know, like, we can be annoying sometimes, say some really dumb stuff, but usually we have, like, very good intentions and are probably some of the most sincere and honest people you meet, so.
And in terms of people with disabilities, dear Lord, it is just a tiny part of us. Like, we are so much more than our disabilities, and this is for anyone with depression, bipolar, or physical disabilities. You know, people that are missing a leg, yes, it is part of their lives, but it is not who they are, you know. Like I mentioned earlier, I didn't want to ruin that fun, you know, funny persona. And it, like I said, for a lot of people that would be the case. You know, they're, instead of being that fun person, they're gonna associate you with, oh, you're the epilepsy girl, you know, which I almost don't mind being called the epilepsy girl. That is who I am, but that's not the main thing of who I am. So I guess that would be my takeaway with people with disabilities, is realize they're there, but realize they are maybe like 1% of who we are. Yeah.
I have all kinds of thoughts about what people should and shouldn't feel about people with disabilities. I guess the number one thing is, like, let them tell you what they do and don't need and what they can and can't accomplish. Like, nothing is more frustrating than people being inspired, just as much as nothing is more frustrating than people telling people that they can't do something. You know what I mean? Like, don't look, like, it's different for me than people with other types of disabilities, but it happens in a similar line. You know, people tell me all the time that I can't eat certain foods, or they, like, ask me that, and I'm like, it's a lot more than just what I can and can't eat, first off. And second off, I can do what I want. I'm my own person, and I'm acting in my own interests. So that's really frustrating. Don't tell people what they can do on their behalf. But then on the same note, don't act like I'm some sort of inspiration for living my life. For diabetes in particular, the thing that I get, like, it boils my blood, and I hear it pretty much on a daily basis, is people see me take insulin, or they see me poke my finger and check my blood sugar, or they see me have a bad day. Like, they just see me, like, with my blood sugar being a roller coaster, and I'm tired and I feel gross. And they're like, I don't know how you do it. I could never. And I'm like, you learn to do it, man. You learn to make it work, because you don't really have a choice. I had huge fear of needles prior to my diagnosis. But guess what? Like, I don't really have a choice. I kind of had to figure it out. So yeah, I stab myself with a needle, like, all the time. I got one in me right now. So that, it's just so incredibly frustrating when people feel like they should have an opinion instead of talking to people with disabilities and finding out what they actually can and can't do, or should and shouldn't need. It's so frustrating. So, like, instead of seeing me take insulin and saying, I couldn't do that, see me take insulin and maybe ask me, hey, like, what are you doing? Or, hey, is there something I can do to help? Instead of just assuming that you know. Like, you would never go up to someone with a wheelchair and just, like, grab their wheelchair and push them around, or tell them they're so inspiring when they're driving their car and parking. You know what I mean? It's just wild. So yeah, that's pretty much my biggest thing for all people with all disabilities, regardless of whether or not they're visible or invisible. Like, talk to them instead of making assumptions and telling them what we should feel. Ugh, it's so annoying. But yeah, that's for me. As far as for me, like, I don't know, I'm just here. I'm just doing the best I can. I don't have anything interesting that I can say about myself. So yeah, that's it.
I think something that everyone should know is like disabled people, we're still people, you know, like we should still be treated like not less than, you know, and if someone looks like they're struggling and you offer help and they turn your help down, don't keep insisting, like trying to help, because that is very dehumanizing sometimes. And like obviously, you know, some people might disagree with me, you know, we're all individuals, but for the most part, I think it's just about treating us like everyone else. Like obviously we do need more help sometimes, but it's like if someone specifically says they don't need that help, just don't bother them. And I think it's also important to know that like I use mobility aids and I use them pretty much full time at this point, but there are days I go out without my mobility aids and I go out without my service dog, and I feel like normalizing the idea that disabled people don't have to be using aids at all, or that disabled people who use aids don't have to be using them all the time. I think that's really something that a lot of people need to understand, because so many times there will be people who are like, oh, you don't need those canes if you don't use them all the time. When it's like, I'm having a good day, why would I limit myself, you know, and use those crutches if I don't actually need them today? So that's definitely frustrating, because it makes me worried to go out without my mobility aid or my dog, because I feel like people are going to be looking at me differently in general and just like assume that I'm faking. And also, very important, kind of in the same note, not all disabilities are visible. You can never just look at someone and just know that they're disabled. So that's something a lot of people need to like get in their heads and keep in their heads.
But yeah, like disabilities is a spectrum just like everything else. There's a lot of different things that disability can mean, and listen to people when they say that they're disabled and let them do what they need to do to get through life, and try to be an advocate for fighting against ableism, because it's still a problem. There's still people who can't come to school, who can't go to work because they're struggling with their disabilities. So like something needs to change. We were able to make everything work for COVID. We were able to have everything online for COVID because all the people who are able-bodied didn't have much of an option. And then we all turned around and pretended that it didn't exist, that we didn't do all those things, and we have to all go back in office and we have to all do the things that we've normally done. But there are still people who are suffering, who are experiencing the issues that COVID brought along, but not necessarily from COVID. So, I don't know, be an advocate. That's pretty much it.